Most people think collaboration starts with a shared goal, but what if it actually starts with shared exhaustion? In a world where educators are trained to give until they have nothing left, how do we build a culture where we actually protect each other? Today, we're tearing down the performing culture of collaboration to find out what it really takes to sustain a team when the tank is empty. Welcome to another episode of Building a Culture of Collaboration. I'm Kurtis Houston, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning. Lorna, who would normally be joining me here today, is working out in a school, so she's not able to join. But I'm super excited to have a guest today who is a force of nature in the education space. Rae Hughart is the CEO and founder of Teachers Deserve It, a TEDx speaker, and the author of both Teachers Deserve It and Teach Better. From being an IEP student diagnosed with learning disabilities to being inducted into the Illinois State University Hall of Fame and receiving the Henry Ford Teacher Innovator Award, Rae's journey is one of profound transformation. She now works with tens of thousands of educators across the country to design mastery learning classrooms and, more importantly, to build sustainable professional cultures. So, Rae, welcome to the show. So great to have you here.
I am overjoyed to be here, and geez, that introduction really built me up, friends. Trust me, you want to knock all that down a peg. We are just here to talk shop and share ideas.
I love it. And I always love it when you hear that bio and go, yeah, I guess that's me, but I'm also just someone who has some thoughts and ideas and would just love to hear from others as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you didn't include all the bad stuff about me, right?
Yeah.
Like all the failures and the things I've done wrong, and how I tripped and fell earlier today and spilled my coffee. I'm so glad you only said the good stuff.
That's awesome, Ray. So actually, that goes right along with this because most of the time, some of our key learnings have come from those biggest trips, those biggest falls. So we try and provide our audience a first minute freebie, something they could take away from the first minute of our conversation. So, what is something that you could share with our listeners that could be an immediate takeaway to support building a culture of collaboration or a resource that may be valuable for them? What could you offer, Ray?
Oh my gosh, we have so many freebies in my world. I feel like I could choose from hundreds of different tips or tricks, but I will say my first freebie I will share is that make sure that when you're speaking to anyone that you want to have the most efficient and effective conversation with, this could be a student, this could be a colleague, this could be an educator that you're talking to, maybe that you are in some sort of leadership role with, stand up. Make sure that you both are standing. It'll make you 33% more efficient and effective.
Oh, I love that tip. Excellent. I'm taking that with me as well, Ray. So I know that we had the bio. Give us a little bit more. What's been your journey that you've taken, Ray, to becoming now that CEO and founder of Teachers Deserve It and impacting so many thousands of educators in the work you do?
Oh gosh, you guys are amazing already with all these compliments. I'm blushing. But no, I mean, my name's Ray. I'm a dog owner. I am a Starbucks coffee lover. And, when it comes to my role now, I'm truly in the dream role, but I've also been an educator my entire career, believing that I've pretty much keep jumping to that dream role. I started as a mean old middle school math teacher. I taught sixth grade math, science, writing, and I loved it. It honestly was the dream role. I love the like sarcasm and the middle school smells and the goofiness that happens. And I feel like every element of my journey kind of walked me into the next step. And I spent a lot of time, the first 10 years of my career thinking about what I was going to do next. And now I'm spending so much more time really living in the present, enjoying the roles that I have. And I'll tell you, if it all ends tomorrow, gosh, it's been a wild ride. So I just keep this journey's been amazing and I feel like it's been full of failure. I can't wait to dive into fun successes that we'll be able to talk about. But gosh, if anyone said this field was easy, they were lying.
Absolutely. So I'm really intrigued for our audience to know a little bit more about Teachers Deserve It. What is the organization and what do you do to help support our fellow educators?
Oh gosh, yeah, Teachers Deserve It has been such a dream. I didn't realize was going to come to fruition in this way, but I myself and, thus in my career, I've worked with educators my entire life. I loved my role as a classroom teacher. I loved my role. I worked in higher ed with future teachers. I've been a coach. I've been a director. I've done all these different things. And I think while I was always looking at the initiatives we were always supposed to be focused on, my passion really lives in the sustainable practices. Like I love my win for my job is when an educator can text me or email me that I saved them 5 minutes or like 30 seconds. Or like I had an educator in February last year message me that they got connected to the Teachers Deserve It movement and they saved 5 hours a week just by implementing small, teeny tiny tweaks into their day as a classroom teacher. And what I love about that is that those 5 hours can be obviously related to professional work. Then you could, grade or do whatever you want to do related to your to-do list. Like me, I could hang out with Alfred, who is coming to sit next to me, my dog. But it also could be like watching Paradise on Hulu or catching up with your family. And that's really what the Teachers Deserve It movement is all about. We're all about connecting educators, whether you are a paraprofessional, a classroom teacher, or in some sort of leadership titled position, connecting you with the resources that are researched and data backed that help you be more efficient and effective. This inevitably impacts burnout and retention and, just the sustainability of this field. So it's been wonderful finding those little nuances to, again, if it helps you save 10 seconds, those add up. And I really love the work.
Ray, it's interesting because I think we have a similar value set. I have often shared that I got into this work in education and started in a grade three classroom. I got there because I just wanted to make a difference for kids. Just that was the driving mantra. And when there was an opportunity for moving into some school leadership, it was, wow, how many more kids could I impact if I took on that space? And you mentioned the higher ed had that opportunity too. And man, if I could help support teachers do the best that they could do at their beginning of their careers, wow, how many more kids could you impact? And then to get to this space where you're engaging with so many different educators, think about that impact that it has for students. I love the idea of if we can support our colleagues and our the teachers that are in the field, wow, just think of the impact that's going to have for so many children, so many
And
students.
And it's so funny because, we move in education in a lot of different spaces, whether you move grade levels, you move working with different colleagues. I loved all the experiences I've had, but if I had to pick, I want to either work with snotty middle school students because they're hysterical, or I want to work with kind of like the most resistant educators, like the ones that have been burned. Everyone in the middle will get along the way, but I've just realized like the amazing impact of being able to meet an educator who even is maybe even reaching out because they want to leave the field and help them see the growth that can be made in a short period of time to then reach being back to loving your job. I mean, there is nothing more fulfilling. I am just such a nerd about that stuff.
Right. This totally connects then. One of the things that when you had shared some thoughts or ideas for the show, you had put in this idea of collaboration starting with shared exhaustion, and that totally piqued my interest. So rather than shared goals. So I would love for you to take some time and explain in your mind, what do you think is the difference between a team that protects themselves versus a team that protects each other when things get hard and break down this idea of shared exhaustion.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, so much has changed since COVID. It's inevitable that we talk about it, of course. But the reality is that I think that was one of the many moments we started to see shared exhaustion. People really talking about, how hard the field is and, what boundaries to put up. And then you saw this big wave, even with this generation in general, of like that Gen Z model of people really putting up boundaries almost to a fault now, right? We're seeing all these extremes happen. And I really believe that The only times we get a fear response, like putting up a boundary that maybe be excessive or anything else, it comes from somewhere. It comes from their boundaries being pushed too many times. Therefore, the reaction is, maybe over the top or excessive. And so I think as we look at protecting ourselves, we do better when we protect others because it
Mhm.
not only allows us to still put up those boundaries, but then we have someone next to us to help us when we feel like we might be able to give more, and they can respond and be in partnership and in collaboration with us on if that's appropriate or not. And so it's really interesting with the Teachers Deserve It movement, with the work I was involved in my last role and everything else. So much of it is building community first.
Yeah.
I think so many solutions can be found when we build that community first. And it does need to be a big community, right? When your listeners are thinking now, gosh, who's in my network? It can be like three people. Like it doesn't need to be some massive tens of thousands of Instagram followers or anything else, but who has your back and how can they make sure that is all shared, in that space.
The thing I find interesting with that too, Ray, is I can put up those personal boundaries, but I might think that's protecting myself, but it might actually lead to further isolation, which we know has some really negative consequences too, where if I'm protecting others and having them protect me, uh, I find that lots of times it might stretch my thinking. It might, what I thought were my boundaries might get expanded, and I might find more fulfillment out of that and then helping others. Again, that idea of how much fulfillment do you get for protecting yourself, or would you rather be helping others within that team?
Well, and I don't know about you, but I do not want to be the smartest person in the room ever. I never believe I am. I actually don't believe I'm that smart at all. I feel like you just always have to have a guy, right? You're like,
Yeah,
oh, I got a guy for that. And this goes same to that conversation. If I put up boundaries, I'm only able to put up the boundaries that I can think of or locate on my own. If
right.
I collaborate with you, you might have a different way to support me that is way better in meeting my end goal. So, I really believe that the more we can come together, the better we are. And the only way that happens is through building that trust, which is how community can really help. So coming together, being honest, we're all exhausted, and then being able to help each other really build up from there, I think is a great starting point.
So I think you're really describing when we see this collaborative culture being real, that there's something it feels different when it's real and authentic versus I've heard you talk about before a performing culture. And in your mind, then, what do you see as some of the tells or the red flags that a school's culture of collaboration or the way they're working together is really just for show? What do you see?
I think that really becomes relevant when you start seeing different decisions be disjointed. I mean, this we see in schools, but we also see it everywhere, friends. Like if you have colleagues with a certain personality type, or you work in a business and there's decisions that are made, you're constantly seeing either reinforced values or disjointed decisions. And so one of the many things that I think are so important for all of us is to really make sure that every moment has the same core value. And if that's the case, then you really build trust. It really builds that consistency. Whereas when you say, oh, we're community first, but then all the decisions are made behind closed doors, you have top level leaders who are saying, oh, I don't really care about that. We just do that because that's how we've always done it, or that's what people want to hear. That's when you start to notice the cracks in the foundation.
Well, and I really think that it's important to be thinking about what are those shared values, and you really can't get to that without discussion and sharing. What have been some of the strategies that you've utilized with people to help make it okay that I can trust the room, that I can share some things that are pretty personal? And I'm not talking about personal information, but we know that for teachers, my practice is a big part of who I am. And to share it is not just tough, but if someone challenges it, that's I take that with me. What have been some strategies that you've used to help people to be vulnerable in order to get to that authentic collaboration? We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you meeting with your team in the hallway, staff room, conference room, or at the back of a classroom? We know that physical space is at a premium in most buildings. However, it is important to consider the impact that your meeting space has on the functioning and well-being of your team. Download our free Leader's Guide for planning spaces for collaboration. This guide will help to determine and plan for the best space for your teams, including considerations that contribute to effective meeting spaces, a checklist to be used when planning the space, and other additional resources. Access the guide at bit.ly/space checklist. That's bit.ly/space checklist, all one word. Get ready to ensure your meeting space is optimally configured to have the greatest impact possible for your next team meeting. And now back to our conversation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The first thing that comes up is related to our partnership schools. So let's maybe talk through this together and
Yeah,
we can
please.
dissect it for what it needs to be for our listeners here. But our partnership schools we work with, we do in a very specific way. Like if you're looking for a keynote, you could bring in the teachers deserve it movement to do it, but why would you? Like there are amazing keynotes out there. We're not one of them. Like that's not our goal. Like I love Mickey Smith Jr. and Thomas C. Murray and like there are countless Ian Bowen. There are amazing keynotes out there that you should go work with. So when you're coming to us, we work with you in a very specific way and our partnership schools have really experienced this to the highest level. So for example, a partnership school that we're working with in Maryland, every time I would talk to their leadership, they're like, our teachers are burned out. They're so overwhelmed. They don't have the support that they feel like they need. We're constantly trying to reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
And one of the first suggestions we have then is to change the way that they do institute days or teacher work days.
Yeah.
So rather than booking that 6 hour keynote or workshop, rather than having a district meeting, there usually is kind of two different types of leaders we find. One is fill the day because that's what you're supposed to do and you have to submit it to the district to prove that you did your job.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to figure out a way to give my classroom teachers time to work on their classrooms. But when I do that, I feel like I'm going against then any sort of professional learning that maybe I should or could be providing. And we like to marry the two concepts.
Mhm.
So within the Teachers Deserve It movement, all of our stuff is asynchronous. We always suggest that our partnership schools don't really have anything planned for their teachers on a teacher workday, maybe principal donuts because those always taste good, and do a little welcome, but then the rest of the day has to be given to the teachers. And
Yeah.
it's given to the staff, the paraprofessionals included, to work on their to-do list. But when they're doing this, it's while getting their professional development. So everything in our learning hub is asynchronous, less than 20 minutes to experience, and all action focused. So the first step is to look at your to-do list. What's the most annoying thing on there? Go into our learning hub, identify the solution that already has existed for you. It's already researched back. There's an educator who already did all the prep, the checklist, the templates, the whatever. And then your time, rather than listening to a lecture, is putting it into place, the implementation route, because that's measurable, right? Most of our 6 hour workshops have like a 10% industry average of implementation, and I feel like that's high.
Mhm.
And what we're looking for is to have closer to like an 80%, a 70% implementation success rate. That only happens when the teachers understand why they're doing it, see the value in it, and it solves a real problem for them, all while given the time to then actually go use it. And so that's what I think of kind of first in this conversation. I'm sorry I went on a tangent, but
Oh, this is
if
great.
if you want to see that consistency, giving your educators time while also making a measurable goal is kind of going to be that first step, maybe.
Yeah. I and listening to this, Ray, I want to take it even one step further. I would imagine that we can see uptick in engaging in exactly what you say. People do this, but doing it on individual basis, what's my greatest area of need? But I would expect that we would see even greater transformation across a school if then there's opportunities to collaborate, to be able to spend, okay, this is what I learned, here's what I've implemented. It didn't work. Here's why I think it didn't. Someone else jumps in and says, "Oh, I used to do something like that. What I've done is X." Like if you can marry that with then some structures for collaboration, then the expertise doesn't lie within asynchronous courses. The expertise then lies within us.
The best, literally the best. Some of the best teacher work days I've seen is an hour welcoming everybody in. You get Panera coffee and you get donuts, and everybody's chatting around, creating great culture. You do a big chunk work day. Go work on your to-do list, go find solutions. This is your time to search through the Learning Hub, all that stuff. Get the implementation set. Then in the afternoon, have your administrator pull a report. What were people looking at? What did your teachers go click on? What was the solution they needed? And then you have quick 15-minute or quick half an hour meetings with relevant data of what
Yeah.
people pulled. Everybody that pulled any resource related to having an overwhelming inbox, let's get them in the room. What's working, what's not working? What did you find? What did you like? What did you test out? What sounded good? What sounded icky? And
Yeah.
you can do that for anything. You can do that for educators looking for de-escalation techniques, educators looking for lesson plan techniques, and being able to pull that information, have those collaborative settings all in one day is so much more efficient and effective.
Yeah. And then again, this is where I'm a big supporter of if we can create systems of collaboration, we're just amplifying that learning that's happening for us. So I'm interested then because you kind of talked about two different leaders, and one of them, I assume that if I just have to fill the day, I'm just giving out the support. But I'm a big believer that as leaders, we actually need, if we expect our teachers to be taking that support or our teams to be taking that support, how are we modeling that? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Rae, on how do you think a school leader could be receiving help without feeling like they're losing their authority or failing their staff. Like, how can I maintain my authority when I'm being vulnerable and showing I need help too? How do I marry those two different mind
Yeah,
or two different paradoxes, I guess?
it's been interesting for me. We just implemented within the last 6 months our educator and advisor dashboards. And this essentially is a dashboard that any leader in our partnership school has access to.
Yeah.
And it not only collects data from what your teachers are engaging with and what educators in the entire Teachers Deserve It movement are experiencing, but it also has a number of different data points that are collected randomly throughout the year, like stress metrics and retention information and things like that. And what I found is that leaders have done so much work, really since, let's just say, even since the early 2000s, collecting data. It's a big push. We're having data meetings all the time. What I would love to look at, and I think to answer your question, what we've been able to see as far as helping leaders is how to really use their data, not just student data, but educator data in your building to help you be a better and stronger leader. And we're really using our dashboards to do that. So our educators, our classroom teachers, our paraprofessionals are learning from teachers all over the US, sharing their ideas, tips, and tricks. And then our leaders are able to go into their dashboard and collaborate on what their findings are, what that means for their trends, and silly things. I mean, how nice is it to be able to look at what anonymously, what's your retention look like for your paraprofessionals this coming school year? If
Yeah.
you said you were going to keep all of your support staff, wouldn't it be nice to know if you had to hire, or wouldn't it be nice to know if the stress level of your staff was reaching such a point that you could really predict 5 or 6 other metrics based off of that stress level? And that's the kind of work we're trying to do. I think leaders are doing so much that sometimes it's kind of simplifying their focus that we see is a real help.
Yeah, and I love that simplifying the focus. I big believer that if you have 10 priorities that are happening in your school, you have no priorities that are really
Well,
happening.
And as much as it's a fad to talk about, teacher burnout and the deficit we have in the field, it is amplified exponentially for our leaders in education. And
Yeah.
it's just not a hot topic or a popular topic to talk about. And so when we're able to not only as a teachers deserve it movement, so to speak, when we're not only able to support it at the paraprofessional and teacher level, but we're also able to support it at the leadership level, I think that's how you really see that transformation come to life.
Absolutely. So let's stay on this leadership train that we're on here, Ray. I'm interested. I mean, you're engaging, you're gathering data from tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of educators. What are you seeing as some of the most common things that let's face it, well-intentioned leaders are doing, but that's effectively killing collaboration before it even starts? Likely accidentally, but what are you seeing leaders doing that's really putting a stake in the heart of teachers collaborating effectively?
I know you're going to hate this one. You're going to want to cut this from the pod. You're going to be like, Ray, you took it too far. Um, it's the micromanaging. And
No,
I
I'm
have to tell
not
you,
cutting that. I 100% agree.
I have to tell you, this is one of those moments where like I know it comes from a good place. And I think if I was a leader right now in school buildings, I would be the leader that did too much micromanaging.
Hmm.
And it comes from a place on wanting to help guide the completely overwhelmed, wanting to do the best I can at my job as a leader in the building, and wanting to like show growth and like show movement, right? And what I'm learning with the partnership school leadership is that we are able to track so much more than ever before. And there are such workaround ways to quote unquote micromanage right now where you can really allow your team of staff members to feel like you trust them, to feel the freedom while you also collect information and ensure sustainability in your practices in the background. And I'm kind of geeking out about that right now, just internally as, the work we're doing with our team, because it's so nice when our leaders kind of step back, give educators time to explore, give them time to work on their to-do list, which feels naughty for some reason. And then we're able to come back and be like, okay, you gave them that time. Here's what they said based off of that work. And here's what the goals are now based off of that work and where we're heading. And that's something that we've really built into our program because we want people to feel freedom.
Hmm. Well, and really what you're saying there in a sense is how do you ensure that you're not when you micromanage, you take away voice and you take away
Yeah.
expertise for I often used to share that in my last school, there was centuries of teaching experience in this building. If I'm micromanaging, I'm not leveraging it to any degree at all. You have to give that voice. And I know again, it's the cliche of voice and choice, but it really does mean a lot to.
Well, it means a ton. And we're doing an upgrade right now in our learning hub. So it's so top of mind, but we're truly building this into our core of our offering next year because right now, we do a lot of different things as far as observations and in-person support. But if you just look at like the learning hub, like the space where educators can go and get resources, it's kind of a stagnant. You post something that helps you, I find it and I use it. And that works great. But in this new update, which is really going to support our leadership, we're seeing like real work happening across the country in real time where you, Kurtis, could log in. You want de-escalation techniques. You not only can find those resources, but anyone else on the platform can also get notified, hey, de-escalation techniques are coming up a bunch. And if there's a pop-up that says, do you have an idea about de-escalation techniques that you want to share with Kurtis
Mm.
right now? And then I might have an idea that isn't published in the library. And that then not only goes to our content team, but it goes to the person looking for the strategy. So there's this community element. It needs to be so important right now. The solutions that we need in education exist. We just need to have access to them.
Oh, you're really I often talk about the solutions that we're looking for exist within our building, but you're really just expanding that building in a sense that
Well, as cliche as it is, and I said this kind of in my head and was like, oh, yikes, you can't say that. But like, teachers deserve it. Like,
Yeah,
your paraprofessionals deserve to get the answer and not be struggling. Like, wouldn't it be nice? Like,
yeah.
isn't it kind of that simple? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm wondering, let's imagine that there's someone listening to this and going, "Uh-oh, I've been micromanaging. I needed that second to hear it from Ray, and I'm reflecting that, yeah, I've worked myself into that cycle." What advice would you give? Because I know that micromanaging kills collaboration within school. What could they be doing as some actionable steps to get out of that? Because again, you've said this already, it probably comes from a place of well-intention. I know when I was doing it, it was because I thought I was helping. If I made all
Yeah.
the decisions, if I just did all the support today, this is what we're going to do together. I'll give that direction where it, yeah, it was really defeating what we were trying to build.
Yeah, it's either a lack of faith or fear, right? That's where micromanaging comes from. I'm either fearful that if I don't, then something will happen, or I don't believe that something will happen unless I take ownership and leadership over it. And so much of it's well-intentioned. Just like you, anytime I micromanage, it is so well-intended. I really do just want to help people.
Mhm.
Um,
We'll be right back to continue this episode. I often hear leaders remark that collaborative time is established for teams in their schools, but they are looking for ways to ensure that time is meaningful and focused. Often, the first reaction is a perceived need to be consistently present to help provide leadership and support. However, when effectively established, focus for the time can be accomplished without the need for a leader to micromanage or devalue the professionalism of those around the table. Join me for the online workshop Creating Focus for Collaborative Planning Without Micromanaging Your Teams, part of our Supporting Collaborative Response series. This on-demand workshop, I will share why focus for collaborative planning is critical and how it can be accomplished without a leader needing to be consistently setting the agenda or needing to be consistently involved. Purchase the workshop and you'll also have the ability to replay all or any portion of the workshop as you wish. I will also be sharing numerous resources, templates, and samples to help support your team planning. Register today to learn more about this critical collaborative structure integral within a school's collaborative response. And now back to our conversation.
I think some simple recommendations is to over plan and then give choice. I have found that, sometimes as leaders, we don't always treat the support we give our teachers like the support you would give if you were teaching a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And I don't say that because our teachers aren't intelligent at all. Like, our teachers are the most amazing humans on the planet. I want to always be seen as a teacher. But it is kind of nice when someone hands you something a little bit figured out already. So, for example, just sharing the directions out loud, yeah, that's great. But like, if you put it on a post-it or chunked the work that you needed me to do, it's just a little bit easier. Give me a visual, it's a little bit easier. So, kind of looking at how you're delivering the expectations can be the first thing that I think really helps. Sometimes micromanaging is just because you don't think that if you gave directions, they'd follow. So being able to give really clear directions and kind of remove some of the hurdles that might come about is what we do for our students. I would love to see that more done for not just teachers, but colleagues, anyone, just kind of helping those barriers come down. And then I think the other element, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I feel like sometimes it's imagining the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Like, what does happen if I don't micromanage? What happens in this one instance? And even naming it with your group. Sometimes I would go into a lesson with students and say, "Hey, I really want us to do this, but it feels like it might get messy, or it feels like you may not understand it, or it feels like insert concern."
Yeah.
Now we're in community figuring that out because then the students can say, "It won't get messy, Miss Hewart. We will make sure it's not messy. We'll keep it in the prescribed area." Or, "Oh, well, why don't we just tell you if we don't understand? Like,
Mm.
can we have a little hand signal if you don't understand something. Putting those out into the world can really be helpful.
Ray, I love this too because I love that worst possible scenario. I actually work through this as a leader too of, okay, I can either tell teams that we have time for teams to get together and work on things that are going to help their practice and their students. I could tell them what to do in that time. But what would be the worst possible scenario if I let them decide to do it? They might create goals that aren't as necessarily as clear as what I might be able to do. But you know what? I can then go and ask some clarifying questions to help them get to a space. They might end up going in a direction that was 100 times better than what I was thinking. I found when I let go of that, and again, painting what's the worst possible, would a child be significantly harmed if a team established a goal that wasn't as robust as I might have done it? Well, of course not. No, and if I can do that over and over, the teams are going to become more skilled in being able to do that on their own.
Well, the nice part about this conversation, first of all, I love being able to chat with you, and I love any listener we have here. If you try something that doesn't work, the next step is getting on the phone. Call Kurtis, call me. Like, let's set up a time to talk and let's problem solve it. Like,
Yeah.
it probably didn't need to go perfect the first time. So maybe it's just about being able to bring something to the table to problem solve, and you have nothing to bring to the table if you micromanage it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest, real authentic, and let's go back to the performing culture of collaboration versus an authentic one. It's messy. There's times where we're going to post things where people go, I'm not quite sure what we would do in that scenario. It is messier, but that's where the true learning and innovation comes in when you allow people to be messy.
The other thing I do want to mention with this, Kurtis, is I I have to tell you, I speak to a lot of leaders that are struggling to dream anymore. Like they're not
Ah,
dreaming. Even though right or wrong, scary or not scary, the world is more creative or has the potential to be more creative than ever before. I think there's a micromanaging that people lean into because they haven't even given themselves the opportunity to be creative and think outside the box. And
yeah.
sometimes that is because it's been taught out of you or you're overwhelmed. If we can lower your stress and increase your capacity, the opportunity to be creative and maybe loosen up or let, like you said earlier, like let it go a little bit might feel more comfortable. So it may not even be the instance you're trying to solve that needs to be solved first.
You know, it's interesting, Ray. I've said this before on this podcast that when we're really in a good space of collaboration, everyone's just a little bit uncomfortable, but we have enough psychological safety that we know none of us are unsafe. But that sense, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable can then be that space where we can unlock just some really creative or innovative ways of thinking for ourselves.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But my only issue and to add to that is I don't want to feel uncomfortable if I'm already at capacity. Like if
Yes,
I'm
yes,
totally full in my day, you're not getting me uncomfortable. I'm just going to disassociate or disengage. So it's
absolutely.
finding this balance between helping our community, whether it be our teachers, our leaders, our paraprofessionals, helping everybody build a little bit more capacity so we can do all the rest of it better.
Absolutely. And you're right. If you're adding discomfort to a really toxic space or a space where people are overwhelmed, you're actually contributing to the problem,
Right.
not
So
helping to support it.
yeah, so a few little tweaks and then you get people really talking.
Absolutely. So, Ray, this has been fantastic. I would love to know if anyone's interested in learning more about the Teachers Deserve It movement, or to get in touch with you. What's the best way to be able to do that?
Why, I appreciate it. This has been so much fun. Friends, if you're willing to connect with me, I'd love to connect with you. All my social media is just at Rae Hughart. But better yet, go connect with the team. They're the ones doing the great work. I'm just the one that got to be on the podcast. So go connect with everybody over at teachersdeserveit.com. You can enter to be a part of our creator studio. You can go explore our learning hub. You can explore what a learning hub leadership dashboard looks like. And you can also obviously connect with our weekly blogs and podcasts. So there's a lot going on over there, and it's all with our goal of getting you the tools and resources that you deserve to have access to. So I
And
appreciate it.
awesome, Ray. And obviously, this people who are tuning in are those that are accessing audio or video podcast content. You've also launched a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, Chris, I have to have you on the pod. You're going to have to come join us, the
I would
Sustainable
love
Teaching
to.
Podcast. Very similar to a lot of the things we've been speaking here, but looking at those small little things that you can do to tweak the work that you're already doing. So everything you're already doing is, I'm sure 90% correct. Let's look at a little tweak you can make once a month to make it even better. So I love the opportunity to share on there. We release 2 episodes a week, and Curtis, I'm excited to have you on the show to share your insight there as well.
Awesome. So that's sustainable teaching, correct?
Sustainable
For
Teaching
everyone's thought.
Podcast. Yeah, it's a great,
Awesome.
easy spot to go. And we also publish a blog after the fact, after every episode, with a free tool or download, like a checklist, a template, something to go use based off the episode. So, again, lots of freebies. We're all about the freebies.
Well, Ray, this has been fantastic. I have loved getting to connect, and thank you so much for the good you're doing in the world. I believe that we make a huge difference for the greater good when we can support teachers, and you are doing that in spades. So thank you so much.
So appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
So I think I've mentioned this before on a podcast when usually I have the chance with Lorna to be able to reflect and to bounce ideas off. Going solo, obviously, this time. I really love what Ray is sharing here and number of takeaways. I love that reminder of having that internal conversation when we're trying to lead teams, when we're trying to, as she stated, not micromanage, of reflecting on what's the worst possible scenario that can happen if I relinquish some control in this particular situation. What is the worst that could happen within that? And when I think about leaders who are trying to think about what are the things I need to take ownership of, what are the things that I could teach or support someone else in doing, and then what are the things I could just plain hand off, being able to reflect on what would be the worst possible scenario if I gave this to somebody else or if I relinquished this piece. I think that's really, really critical. And I loved her reminder that lots of times that micromanagement is just rooted in fear. Fear that something may not go the way that we want it to go as a leader, but we can't really have an authentic culture of collaboration if we hold on to everything. And so, really embracing that collaboration is messy, working together is messy, and we need to let go of some of that control. I love the idea of just trying to simplify as much as we can. And we often talk within schools that get really clear on what are the key priorities. And when I say priorities, we're talking 2 to 3 perhaps, that we're trying to impact through our collaborative efforts and getting crystal clear on those and then letting the teams determine what could we be doing that would help us move forward in those priority areas. And then the last piece that stood out with me came with the first minute freebie of think about when you're communicating with someone to be able to stand when you're in that conversation. And this just gets me reflecting on being really conscientious of what are the things we're communicating through the nonverbals when we're engaging with people. I think about myself of having the times where talking with someone, but I'm seated at a desk with my laptop open where it's too easy if there's a bing to just divert my eyes. And now I've just communicated that the most important thing happening in this room is not the conversation that we're having. So being really mindful of sending those out. And then as our teams talking about what are the actions or the expectations that we would hold of each other when we're collaborating, when we're communicating with each other. We often talk about this as developing norms together, where we can say those expectations out loud and then hold ourselves to them as we go. So, as always, love for you to be able to connect. Join us. Send us a note at questions@jigsawlearning.ca if you have a question, if you'd like to connect. Also, check out jlinsiders.com. We have a number of resources that we share out through that mailing list that we know you're going to find valuable. And finally, please share, like, subscribe for this episode to be able to share out Ray's work and the amazing things that are happening at teachersdeserveit.com. So, with that, wishing you all the best as you continue to build your culture of collaboration. And I'm sure Lorna would want you to know that she can't wait to see you soon.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.